I don't know if we call it a standoff, but it was certainly a moment of clashing between two people that you would hope had good intention. We've been following Norman Finkelstein this entire time. His mastery at understanding the Middle East and understanding specifically what's going on in Palestine, in Israel, and the historical context of what's been going on. He's been nothing more than a voice for the people in that regard. And you would hope that somebody like Cornel West would agree with Norman Finkelstein on all of his assessments of what's going on. And I'm sure they do agree on a lot about it. However, there's one point, and this is maybe a philosophical point, but it needs to be discussed. We're going to play this little back and forth. Norm's going to start, and then Cornel's going to respond, and we can stop it. Tell me what you want to stop at any time in the middle and respond, but it's about a 5-minute interaction here. And we're going to talk about, principle and moral compass when it comes to how we treat people and where we draw the line on humanity and when we hold people accountable and when we accept. Here we go. Here's Norm. He's going to start.
And I know Brother West. He embraces everybody. When he says brother, when he says Brother Sharpton, I cringe. But he does it, even though Brother Sharpton has stabbed him many a time in the back. But I say they ought to be shunned. You ought not to be inclusive of child killers. I'm asking you, Cornel, do you feel that those students are obliged to be inclusive of child killers? I'm curious, because I know you're very inclusive. Maybe your tent stretches from here to the other side of the galaxy. Do you believe that they should be inclusive of child killers?
Yeah, that's a hell of a way of characterizing it, though, because you see, part of the problem here, brother, is that, the history of religions, which has been for the most part the history of barbarism in terms of institutional religions, they have specialized in shunning people. And once you begin to shun, then the next step is dehumanization, subjugation, and you're just redoing the same cycle that you yourself were resisting from the very beginning. On the other hand, and here this is where, now see, and he did not, we have such great respect and love for you, brother, but we don't agree on everything. Is that right, though, babe? We don't agree on everything. Because different strokes for different strokes, not in the superficial sense. Sly Stone just died. That ain't no joke. That was at the dignity of everyday people. You a different kind of brother than I am. I don't have to make you like me. You the kind of brother who have courage, intellect, unbelievable commitment to truth, and believes in shunning. I'm a different kind of brother. Shunning people who are connected with killing babies.
I don't believe in shunning as if it were a political principle. It's a visceral reaction.
Yes.
There's something revolting about being, as Harvard kept writing, to be inclusive of child killers. I find that just an utterly revolting concept.
But
isn't it?
But
that's a great question. Isn't that just a revolting concept, Cornel? Is he able to answer this question? It sounds like Cornel is doing some maneuvering. That's what it seems like to me on right here, Craig. I don't know if you want to respond now.
I don't know, but we definitely got to run the rest because I think he does answer it right now. But I don't think it is. I don't think it's exposing him. I think he's having a moment himself, Cornel West, and this is Norm Finkelstein, and we'll provide some context to what's going on for these two gentlemen after we hear the rest of it. But I think let's listen to this out, and then we'll kind of piggyback on top of it because he does make the comment here. And Cornel West gets the answer. So let's see what we come up with.
Good.
But we just different kind of brothers,
You-
man. We got different kind of
fine.
temperaments, man.
I'm
I
gonna ask
don't believe
you-
in just...
look, Cornel,
look at it this
I'm
way.
gonna
Look
ask you-
at it
no,
this
Cornel,
way.
would you corrupt...
If
would
we
you...
shunned
1 second.
every American who supported the extermination of indigenous peoples, there's not a whole lot of folk left in the
Okay,
history
Cornel,
of the
fine, fine.
If we shun
No, but we
the
can do-
majority of Americans who
No,
supported the
this-
enslavement of
this
black
is-
people, the lynching...
I'm just going to pause here. He's changing the context. I just want to be clear. He's changing the context. He's saying people who support. We're not talking about people who support. We're talking about people who actually do the murdering, people who murder children. I'm just going to throw that out there. So the context is changing, and he's making it about support.
Well, wait.
Much
He
larger
clarifies it, though. He clarifies it
Okay,
up in
all
his
right.
next statement. Let's go ahead and watch.
Okay.
of black
This
people,
is a-
Jim Crow and Jane Crow, who's left? Well, you got some Mormons, you got some Quakers and some Mennonites and so forth around. Then you got the secular Jews in Brooklyn
I'm
who
sorry.
come in with this
This
rich
is-
tradition and want to go to the back of the bus on the Jim Crow bus when all the black folk are
this
there
is-
and the Goyim is
okay.
in the front. That's a small group.
No, this is a rhetorical evasion.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
I'm speaking
Cornel,
directly to
Cornel,
your question. I'm
would you-
just not agreeing
would
with
you
you.
cavort and carouse? Because these students are complaining. They don't invite us to their parties. That's what they say. They don't invite us to our parties. They don't want us in our groups. They don't want to associate with us.
That's microsocial. That's microsocial activity,
Would
though,
you
brother.
cavort?
We know that's not
Yeah,
the
but that's
issue.
the
That's not the
report-
crucial issue.
No,
the
the
question
point-
is, how do you stop the killing of Palestinian children
Yeah,
and
but-
innocent folk,
fine,
and how do you
I'm
become
all-
organized and mobilized enough to
No.
bring power and pressure to bear? It's not whether they get invited to some party after somebody's
Yep.
Hillel meeting and so forth and so on. No, we're not going
Would
to spend time on that.
Would you cavort and carouse with a child killer? I'm curious. I don't think that's a trivial question.
No,
You wouldn't.
no.
You
That's why
would, you would shun,
explicitly-
you would shun them, correct?
I would do more than shun, brother. I'd probably cuss them out and lose my Holy Ghost and kick their behind in the name of Jesus. But the point is, that's not normative. That's not the only model that I want everybody to proceed. I got my own way of being in the world. I'm a jazz man, got my own voice. This is how I decide to live my life. I want to love my way through the darkness. I don't believe in shunning, even given the crimes that people commit. If you got a different view, that's cool. I'm with you. We in the same demonstrations. We go to jail together, and we have fascinating conversations on child killers and how do you respond to child killers. That's all.
All right.
All right.
Your initial thoughts. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so I am grabbing the Cornel West video that I did, the interview what I did with Cornel West, and I've also mentioned that next Friday we're going to start having Edwin DeJesus, who was part of the campaign management, the 4 campaign managers that came on after they let go of what's his name, who went over to Jill Stein. I forgot his name. It was an the ex Clintonite, right? Peter Dow, right? So there is some context that I can use to provide my opinion on what's going on, because the thing about it is that I think that we have to establish right off the bat, and this is a problem right now because it's very different, right? There are 2 main different types of people who support Israel right now. There's multiple people, but there's 2 main people who support Israel right now. There is a difference between an IDF soldier who has bragged about killing children, who a difference between Smotrich, who is the defense minister who says he wants to openly exterminate them, human animals. There's difference between somebody who's actually committing these crimes right now and going ahead versus, let's say, for instance, my neighbor down the hallway, right? My neighbor down the hallway is a Jewish guy from New York. I don't know if he's even been to Israel. I don't know if he served in the IDF. Or I'm saying I think his wife was Catholic, and you know what I'm saying, I don't even know what his kids consider themselves because the mom ain't Jewish. He's Jewish and stuff like that. But he's an everyday New York Jewish guy who has been programmed to support Israel, their right to exist, that they are the victim. Probably in school did a lot of studies about the Holocaust and whatnot. There's a big difference between that person and a person in the IDF. And I think Cornel West made the clear distinction about difference between I kicked that guy in the name of Jesus' ass, but it's not the norm. It's not the everyday person. How do we talk to these other people? I think there is a sense of...
He's not making a distinction. He changed the topic on purpose to win the argument. That's not the topic that the conversation started with. That wasn't the topic.
Well, okay. Well, listen, I once again, I think that what he was making a distinction from and what Norm Finkelstein was trying to find out is how do we treat these people who are supportive of Israel, right? Do you necessarily shun them or do you try to talk to them, right? So Cornel West was making the distinction from the fact that this person is different. He said, I would kick this guy's ass in the name of Jesus. He's a baby killer. However, that's not the norm. And how do we treat and talk to other people about this?
I did not get the sense that Norm was at the top saying he's not. His focus of the discussion wasn't on how do we talk to people who have Israel flags.
So he was saying, do we shun these people, right?
He's saying the actual baby killers that are justifying this behavior, which we see time and time again, so many videos of their smug asses talking about it and supporting it and grinning and smiling. And like you said, sharing the horrible shit on their socials. He's saying that that's not in a society moving.
But he also talked about Al Sharpton. He wasn't just talking about IDF personnel, Matt. He talked about Al Sharpton. So he was talking about, and I think that this is where it is. Like, there's a difference between me and Fiorella as far as our sense of patience of talking to a Zionist. I'll go talk to Marty, my friend down the way. Pure Zionist, believe what's going on, whatnot. But once again, like I said, did not serve in the IDF, did not kill, just difference of opinion. I love the guy. He's my neighbor. He cares about me. I have his number. We talk all the time. I strongly disagree with his views, but I think there is a difference of opinion from people nowadays on their patience, which has been worn thin on whether these people should be shunned or not. Meaning the everyday person out there who is still supportive of what the Zionists are doing. Now, they might not pull the trigger, but I think when it comes to people like Norm Finkelstein, when it comes to people like, these other people, there's a thin line. Misty Winston, for instance, probably wouldn't have the same patience for talking to a Zionist as I would. She might, in the middle of a conversation, get up and walk away and say, fuck that dude. That dude's an embarrassment. He needs to be shunned. I think that's where we're coming from in this conversation right now about people who should be shunned or some people who should be talked about. Now, I want to say this much. He is doing the exact opposite of what I accused him of doing. When I went after him in our interview, which, by the way, he never shared, and he shares all. He goes on Twitter. Thank you, brother Pasta, for a great interview. He didn't do that, right? He just went about his business, right? For whatever reason. Now, I'm not going to say why, but I did challenge him. And my attitude for him was, you are calling Biden and his supporters neoliberals, but you're calling Trump and his supporters neo-fascists. It's way too wrong, right? One outweighs the other one. Why are you shunning the Trump people? That was my argument, that he was shunning them before he could even win them over.
Yeah.
So in this particular context, what he's talking about, he showed with Pasta Jardula that he was a little hypocritical, because that was my big point. It was like, look, I'm not saying to excuse these people for their thoughts and their beliefs or say it's okay or not even hold them accountable. What I'm saying is that you are openly shunning a whole group of people when there's a good portion of them you can win over, but by automatically shunning them, calling them neo-fascist, you are pushing them away. Why are you doing it? Here he's talking the opposite, that he's not willing to shun people for their beliefs and their thoughts. And he puts his money where his mouth is, because he does go on Fox. He does go on conservative networks and talks to, conservatives, where other people in the Democratic Party would just simply participate in cancel culture and won't even talk to those people to begin with. So that's my thought on that right there as well. Why couldn't he take his own advice right there when he was running for president and not call Biden a neoliberal and Trump a neo-fascist, because he was just shunning a whole group of people?
That's an excellent point. And that makes me feel more like Norm. I'm going to double down that Norm Finkelstein has more integrity, has more principle, and has more consistency with applying that principle by you making that analogy to him doing this during the last election season, the opposite of what he's doing. You're actually making the point that he's just going off of the devil's advocate, or trying to maneuver in this debate and say the key words that he thinks is going to get his civil rights followers, or get them to go, yeah, you stick it to him, Cornel, with all your civil rights talk and all of his examples that he gave of what if we were to shun people that believed in this, and he told all those different examples that were all civil rights related. So he's not being authentic in this moment, when I believe that the principle you need to apply is they both are capable of having discussions. You mentioned Fiorella. I didn't know she's didn't seem like somebody that would get up and walk away. I know you would never get up and walk away. I would never get up and walk away. I've toughed it out with so many Zionists. I love toughing it out. I take pride in never. Yeah.
Misty and Fiorella have zero patience left.
They don't have the patience. Okay.
In other words, they start hearing somebody talk that shit,
they're out.
They're not curse them out. They probably walk out of the fucking room just to be somewhat, you know what I'm saying? Misty and Fiorella are those type of people where me and you will be like, well, what about this? That, you know what I'm saying? Like that.
We want to walk them through it.
Yeah.
And hit it over their head. Not because they're necessarily going to change their mind in a moment. They're going to go, it's not like they're going to go, aha, I was wrong. What was I thinking this whole time? It's anybody listening. It's the idea that you can achieve some sort of understanding of some sort of any onlooker is seeing it. This is why I know that Norm is the one out of the two that is consistent and has principle, because each of them are capable of doing what you and I are both capable of doing is you can continue preaching and educating, and you can also shun people for if their action led to someone else's death. If your action led to someone else's demise, you can shun them. You're allowed to do that. And at the same time, you can help educate people who are listening. If they're not listening, maybe someone else is. And that's why I know they both can do that. So this argument to me seems like it just doesn't seem honest from Cornel's point. And I'll say, man, I'm so glad you brought up that point about the election cycle, because Cornel does the exact opposite when it was time to start.
Which was surprising. When Cornel first announced, I would have bet a 95% chance that I'd be voting for the guy, because he had the ability to talk to people and not shun them when it was necessary. But here in this whole situation, out of the gate, he shunned a whole class of people. And like I said, his interview with Jimmy Dore, his interview, not so much with me, but his interview with Jimmy Dore almost seemed like a endorsement of what we need to push away from, that Biden is the lesser of two evils than Trump, right? Like he kind of endorsed that mentality right there with those interviews. Right. And that's something that went against, once again, it was like, why don't we just change the language? First of all, and I think really, to tell you the truth, it's not about patience for the situation and about talking people through. I think that me and you, Matt, when it comes to comparing ourselves to Fiorella and Misty, we also have a little bit more tolerance for people who are maybe a little bit what they would consider to be just stupid and lost, right? Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? I think we have more sympathy for that person, which could be a bad thing sometimes, because you know what I'm saying, if you go too far, if you give people too much excuses when enough of the evidence is out there and you got to call it like it is, balls and strikes, we say it all the time, it might take us away from calling a strike because we want that person to at least to understand that person. But I mean,
it's not just sympathy. I think I stick around, and I would say maybe it's a little ego, but it's also this idea that I'm not going to let someone else affect me that much to have to get up and leave. That, to me, that makes me feel like I was affected too much, when I can stay perfectly calm, perfectly still, and get to the point I need to make and call them out when they're lying right to your face and say, that's not the thing I just said. And
I don't think it's effect. Yeah. And I can't stand when for instance, when I always say, well, we have the situation with the LGBTQI community, and Fiorella would go, well, why is that affecting you so much? It's like, it's not affecting me. It's just a losing plan. It's just a losing tactic. I want this to be successful. And if you go that way, you're going to turn people off. The same way that Dr. Cornel West turned off all the Trumpers right away by referring to them as neo-fascist and Joe Biden people as neoliberal, right? You know what I'm saying? He just turned them off. So, once again, it's, and when it comes to those conversations, I just don't think that, once again, it's like, I respect, Misty and Fee for not allowing that person to be able to talk their bullshit anymore. They've already had their chance, and they're still talking their bullshit. People are still yelling, Hamas. They're still yelling the same thing, and they're yelling it because because we allowed them to yell it instead of maybe walking out of the room. Maybe that's what they need. So that's why I don't look down upon that. I just look at it as different. And I just got to say, so we had the Cornel West situation, right? We had the interview with him, and then he also too went on Jimmy Dore too as well. And it was, once again, this kind of the language you're using, whatnot. He was shunning people right out of the gate. He didn't want to recognize it and just change and make the tactic change. But right after October 7th, on October 10th, I think it was. October 7th happened on a Friday. They had the 8th, the 9th. So on the 10th, here I am sitting in Jimmy Dore's chair while he's on thing. And I have right at the gate the first chance I have. Now, as you know, Max Blumenthal is the guy there for Israel. In fact, Jimmy encouraged Max Blumenthal and RFK to have a debate. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows how close the gray zone is to that. But for me, you know, I sitting in the chair, you also wear the producer's cap. It was my decision to say, hey, let's try to get Norm Finkelstein. Let's get a different voice in here. He hasn't been on the show in a while. It was a long time ago. Let's get him in here. So I was able to sit down for almost 2 hours with Kurt. You wouldn't believe the conversations. Me and Kurt had like an hour conversation after he left. We're just mind blown from this guy. The history, the historical context, the way of putting this together. You know, I had something planned and Norm took the bus and he drove it. Now, it kind of went the way I wanted it to go because I wanted to kind of take a step back and make it Gaza for idiots, just kind of explain the whole situation so people can understand the whole context of what's going on. But, man, it was amazing to have Norm Finkelstein in that chair and just sit back and get educated for him right out of the gate, the first Monday after October 7th. What a treat. You know, I mean, that's the things we were able to do and stuff. What a treat after sitting. This is the Monday, the first fucking work day of after October 7th that happened on a Friday, because whatever got on Friday was very loose. And on the weekend, they were throwing shit together. But this is right out of the gate to have him. Wow. Wow. Talk about being privileged. That was one of the moments of my life I'll never forget. If you haven't seen it, go back on Jimmy Dore's show and watch the Norm Finkelstein interview I had with him. I think Due Dissidence brought him back like a year after. So there's a lot of stuff. If you want to get educated on what's really going on, go right ahead, right over there. Yeah. Just amazing stuff, by the way.
Well, this was a good debate on these guys. I guess at the end of the day, I would say, yeah, I would still give it to Norm, but you did make a good point about Cornel. So I hear it. I think Cornel could have won this if he had brought up, you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong to shun people during the election season. Then I think he could have won some people over on it, some more people if he was more self-aware.
He shunned the whole MAGA base. And I was like, my attitude was from a strategic point of view, right? Like, what are you doing? Hey, bro, like you can get a lot of these people to come on your side right now. Don't sit there and make them look. They're calling them a fascist, but you're calling Joe Biden and his supporters a neoliberal. I mean, that's just. I mean, you're selling the lesser of two arguments right here. You're in fact backdoors of subconsciously endorsing Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Get away from it. Get out of it. Just change the language. Don't shun these people. You shunned the whole MAGA base right out of the gate, Dr. West.
Okay, let me take a moment to introduce you to our good friends over at World Harvest Food Bank right here in LA. World Harvest has been serving families across Los Angeles for 18 years now, and they started with this simple idea. Everyone deserves access to healthy, affordable food no matter what they're going through. With their Cart with a Heart program, families can walk away with a full cart of groceries, fresh produce, dairy, meat, and pantry supplies for just a $50 contribution. That's for the entire cart. That same cart will cost over $300 at a typical grocery store. At World Harvest, everyone is welcome. They don't ask for income verification, ID, or any paperwork. No. Basically, their doors are open to anyone who's doing their best, but just needs a little extra push to get by. If you're an Angelino like me, you know the times have been tough here. First with all the union strikes, the LA fires, and now the ICE raids going on. It seems like we're living in a constant state of uncertainty. And that's why it's so important to support local charities like World Harvest, because they aren't just helping the community. They're an essential function in its very survival. World Harvest is located at Venice and Arlington. And right now, you can use our special discount code THL20 for 20% off your contribution amount at checkout. And if you're not in the LA area, you can still help out with a $50 donation, which will provide a full cart of food for a family by going to worldharvestfoodbank.org or scan the QR code for more info. Or you can just spread the word. Follow them online. Let people know they're here for them, because at the end of the day, it's about providing choice, access, and relief without barriers. World Harvest Food Bank. End hunger now.